Donald Trump continues to make good on his promises, and of course it is causing the left to freak out, including the harpies over at The View. But before we get to them, I do want to point out some more tremendous news over here. Yes, Donald Trump is in fact gladly confirming that all federal employees in DEI roles will be placed on leave as of 5 p.m. today. All right, this is wonderful because all of these programs, of course, are a complete waste of money. And of course, they simply just get in the way of all of these agencies and even the military from performing their intended duties. So I say sayonara, good to see you. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. But of course, as it stands, what is still holding over the news cycle is the simple fact that yes, Donald Trump has pardoned pretty much every single January 6th political prisoner. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into these clips. But before we begin, don't forget to like and comment on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
This is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon. Yes. Full pardon.
Should there be punishment for the people who assaulted law enforcement officers that day?
Well, I will say this. They've been in jail for a long time already. What they've done to these people is outrageous. I was surprised that President Biden would go and pardon his whole family, because that makes him look very guilty. And how about this J6 committee? Why is he pardoning them? They were guilty as hell. They rigged it. It was a rigged deal.
So in Trump's world, the lawmakers trying to protect democracy are thugs, and the lawbreakers are hostages. Do I have that right?
You have it right, yes.
Okay.
That's
your thoughts.
I disagree with it. I think it's dangerous. I think it's reckless. I fear that some of these people may commit crimes in the future. Sure. I think it was prudent that Joe Biden preemptively pardoned people like Dr. Fauci and Mark Milley, who are political targets for Donald Trump. He has expressed that. I was floored that Joe Biden pardoned his whole family, and let me tell you why. He's either the most charitable interpretation is the Titanic is sinking. I've got a life raft for my family, but anyone else who challenged Trump, you better swim or you're drowning. That's my most charitable interpretation. And finally, he didn't do anything to protect people who testified against Donald Trump unless they happen to be wrapped up with the police officers. And it sets a very dangerous precedent. Now Donald Trump can basically advise staff and his family to do anything unlawful and then just issue a blanket pardon when he leaves office. I think it was disgraceful, and it's going to harm his legacy.
I think comparing Biden's pardons to Trump's is like comparing apples to Volkswagens.
It seems really similar when Jerry
it does not seem similar to me, because Joe Biden's family and the people he pardoned in the January 6th committee have not actually committed crimes. He is trying to prevent them from spending the rest of their lives fighting the government, which is no easy feat. I also think that no Republican and nobody who stood up on January 6th and January 7th and condemned what happened there, which was an act of treason. It was an insurrection. I don't care what you're going to call it. I don't care how you want to whitewash it. Nobody who stood up and condemned that and is today silent after those pardons should be able to look at themselves in the mirror, because you have no morals. You have absolutely
Biden hung some
no
folks out to
spine.
dry who did speak out on January 6th.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to put a quick button on it, because I was not offended by Biden pardoning his family, because I think, just like Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you or tells you who they are, believe them the first time.
Right.
We've already had a Trump presidency. We know that this administration is a vengeful one. We know this is a vengeful man. And if I can protect me and mine, I would do that. And so I think we need to show Joe Biden some grace.
Yes, give Joe Biden a little bit of grace for pardoning his whole family, not to mention the January 6th Commission and Dr. Fauci, all of these people that did some things that were questionable at best and downright illegal at worst, right? In the case of the January 6th Commission, actually destroying evidence. And in the case of Dr. Fauci, out and out lying to the American people as to the efficacy of the vaccine and, of course, how the virus is spread and all of these supposed steps we took to save ourselves, protect ourselves from being infected, right? All of that was a bunch of garbage. And of course, in my opinion, warrants investigation, even if they have been pardoned by Joe Biden. But also don't forget the nearly 5,000 criminals that Joe Biden either pardoned or commuted the sentences of, right? Rapists, murderers, cop killers, right? These were terrible people. But of course, those January 6ers, oh, they've got to rot in jail. And I'm sure The View doesn't know about the people who have been in jail, held for years without charges, who will now be released. And of course, the people who are actually convicted of simply just walking in, okay? And yes, there were some violent people, but as I just mentioned, Joe Biden actually pardoning or commuting sentences of real criminals out there killing people, all right? That is what Joe Biden did. Remember, Donald Trump actually ran on this. He said it on the campaign trail. So even if people didn't agree with it necessarily, they knew it was coming when they voted for him. And by the way, the majority of people did vote for Donald Trump, which of course is horribly inconvenient for The View. But of course, Donald Trump's presidency is already shaping up to be completely stellar and hopefully will be one of the greats. So let's see this being discussed over on Piers Morgan with Anna Kasparian.
All he's got left now is to deliver on his big promises. And if he does that, to leave a legacy as potentially one of the great American presidents.
I mean, I hope your interpretation is correct. I mean, obviously, being the target of an assassination not once but twice is a traumatic situation to experience, and maybe it changed him to some extent. But I do want to just quickly go back to the points made in regard to the investigations. I really hope that Trump doesn't waste his time in his last term focusing on retaliation against his political opponents. So we're going to have to wait and see about that. I largely agree in regard to Alvin Bragg's prosecution of Donald Trump as it pertains to, his extramarital affairs with adult actresses. I like that you're giving him the benefit of the doubt, but don't be a cheeky little devil, you. Okay, you know that he had an affair. That's why the hush money payments were paid. But I think that investigation and prosecution really paled in comparison to the classified documents case and the attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election. I think the timing of the prosecution by Democrats in those two cases were very much political, and that led to empathy toward Donald Trump and actually helped him garner more support for this election. But in regard to his speech, I think that what Trump does really well is he actually listens to the concerns of the American people. Polling for years indicated that the majority of Americans were concerned about inflation, concerned about undocumented immigration. And while the Democrats tend to think that this strategy of denying and pretending it doesn't happen or isn't happening is somehow a successful strategy, it clearly is not. He pays attention to what people are concerned about, and he speaks to those issues. And I really hope that this is a teachable moment for the Democratic Party. So far, I've seen them refuse to take any personal responsibility for their failures and foibles.
I don't think they've learned, honestly.
Cycle.
Yeah, honestly, and I don't see any evidence so far that Democrats have learned a damn thing.
So once again, Anna Kasparian comes so close to being absolutely correct, but then veers off the path completely, right? The things that are most concerning about Donald Trump was, of course, his classified documents case and trying to overthrow the election of 2020. Oh, and never mind the fact that, of course, as president, he's allowed to declassify and classify anything he wants at any given time, including the things that were in his possession, all right? But never mind Joe Biden, who did the exact same thing as vice president and had no rights whatsoever to have those classified documents. But the FBI totally going to overlook that. The DOJ going to say, oh, that's just fine. But Donald Trump, oh, we're going to nail him to the wall, right? But all of that, of course, is completely over with Jack Smith now resigning or being forced out or whatever. But Anna Kasparian, of course, has to come out and say that, yes, the Democrats refuse to listen. The Democrats refuse to learn. And Donald Trump, that's at least one thing he's really good at. He's listening to the concerns of the American people and, judging by his first 3 days in office, is acting on it promptly, right? All of these executive orders going through. It's going to take time, of course, with the House and the Senate to get in line and hopefully pass some bills that will have more long-lasting standings, but we'll take what we can get at this point, all right? But now I want to get back to Rachel Maddow, also melting down over this whole January 6th fiasco.
This is day one, unfolding pretty much the way we expected it to. And yes, this is novel in American history, but it is also knowable in world history, because it's the same stuff every other would-be authoritarian leader does in every country that has had to contend with a leader like that. And as Americans, we've had bad inaugurations before, including the one where one of the principals was too drunk to stand. We've had blatant cash in envelopes to the vice president corruption before. We've had political violence before. We've had civil war. But before, each of those things has been treated as a calamity and a scandal. This time, it's a platform. This is textbook authoritarian takeover 101 tactics, which means today and literally over the next few days, they're going to see what they can get away with and how much they can cow people into not opposing what they're doing and not speaking out about what's wrong with it. More than ever, this is not a time to pretend this isn't happening. You're going to want to have a good answer when you get asked what you did for your country when your country started to take a turn this radical. We are here. It is happening in our lifetimes. Well, we are citizens responsible for the fate of our country.
So Rachel Maddow here is actually kind of correct. This is a complete takeover. The Republicans have the House, they have the Senate, they have the White House. Now, of course, it's some slim margins, but don't forget that, yes, Donald Trump won the popular vote. He won all of the swing states, and that means that, by and large, people agree with him, his platform, and his plans. But Rachel Maddow, oh, what are you going to do to be an obstructionist? How are you going to stand up for your country and be remembered by America? But that, of course, is just the mindset of the left. We've already seen some of these deep staters saying, oh, how can we throw a cog in the works? How can we get our plants into the Trump administration? How can we kind of foil him at every turn? But Donald Trump, of course, being wiser than he was in his first presidency, is ousting everybody, replacing them with his own people. And of course, hopefully that will allow everything to run much smoother. But of course, that's not going to stop the left from melting down, which means, hey, I've got more clips to show you, the people. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there because they're coming after you.